I feel like there's atheists, there's agnostics, and then there's devout religious people. There's definitely a God. Praise Allah, Jesus Christ, whatever. I feel like and don't get offended when I say this, I feel like on the science of there is a God and the science of there is no God, I feel like there is equal parts absolutely zero, and I feel like you're crazy not to be agnostic. That's my theory, and that's only because we have all the science behind the Big Bang. We have everything, like science is great, and I believe in science, 100%, but it still doesn't explain what put us here, why is there consciousness, what is life, what created the universe, what was before the Big Bang. Like those questions are forever going to be, well, they might not be, and you pulled me up on this last time, they might not be forever unanswerable, but until they are unanswerable, then I feel like you're crazy to be one way or the other. That's my thoughts on the whole thing.
Okay, so the question, do you believe in God, right? It's only a few words long, but what do you mean?
Yeah.
To some people, a God is somebody who, basically comes in and plays a part in their everyday life. And if you talk to that God through prayer, then your prayers may be answered. Okay, so, is there a being that watches over each of us? And if you're a believer and you pray, then they will make sure you win the lottery or that your cat doesn't die or something.
Cat gets Wi-Fi.
That side, that's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Right.
Nor I.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you go one level higher. Is there a creator in the sense of? Is there the possibility that humans were created? Well, are we some sort of genetic experiment of some alien race?
Mm-hmm. Are we? Yeah, that's right. Bacteria.
Possibly, but of course, the evolution, the evidence from evolution that we are part of a long line of descendants that goes way back, etc., is very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly when these aliens came in and injected us with consciousness, who knows? Is a chimp conscious? Right? I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on chimps, but you see their behavior. Often, chimps' behavior and human behavior are not that dissimilar, right?
Yeah, especially me on a Saturday night.
Yeah, exactly.
Jacking off, just walking down the
street. Could aliens have come here and put consciousness into apes and made humans? I can't say it's 100% ruled out, but I'd say the evidence against that is pretty weak.
Yeah.
Could we be part of a simulated universe, etc.? Well, there's a possibility there. I'm not going to say the word evidence, but the universe is consistent with it being a simulated thing. But then the question of do you believe in God? It's a very different God who's a computer programmer in a higher dimensional universe that created this as possibly as a school science experiment, and may have not even know that there are living creatures on one of the planets in their simulation, etc. So look, this is why the philosophers wrestle with these questions. Do you believe in God? Is not just that statement. It's a whole bucket of things.
Yeah, and my thing is definitely not. It's more as the universe and the processes behind it. Like maybe there was some conscious thought, something. Maybe it was created. Just creator. That's the thing. I'm not a god, not a whatever. But that's the fact that we don't know. That's where and I don't really wrestle with it. I just think it's an open-ended question, so that's why I call myself agnostic, basically.
And even the term, two things that I wanted to add with this is the term created is like you would have to assume then that someone planted a single-celled organism and then allowed for it to evolve, because that's obviously how we've evolved. But like the word create just implies that we were all just planted like an Adam and Eve type thing.
I just mean like more the universe. Like, but then it's the same question, because who created the guy that created the universe?
But it's always chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
Right, but not to muddy the waters, right?
Muddy them.
Yeah, getting real dirty.
I'm already muddy, mate.
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
I'm dirty and aroused.
Okay, so if you create the universe with the notion that eventually after 14 billion years there would be humans on this planet, you've got to set up an awful lot of steps, right? Because the elements that we're made from were made in the hearts of stars, which are now dead, right? So essentially when you say somebody created the universe, they set up the gas in such a way that it would collapse and form these stars, and these stars would go through their lives and explode. This material would get recycled.
That, though. I don't even feel like that. I just feel like in general, like just there's some stuff. Do what you want with it.
But
Okay.
But so that then is an interesting question. Did the creator set up the universe with the intention that there would be life on this planet?
Exactly.
Because as you say, if you just set it up, I mean, look, the question of life in the universe is a big one, and the question of intelligent life in the universe is an equally big question. But currently, all evidence points to this being the only sort of planet with intelligent life on it, if not life at all.
Yeah.
So if you created the universe to do something and we ended up here on this planet and we are the only life that there is in the universe and you didn't set it out that way, then in what sense is that a creator?
Exactly.
In terms of caring about you?
No, you're right. And I don't particularly believe there is a creator.
Okay.
All I'm saying is I think that because it's an unanswerable at the moment, not unanswerable, but it's an unanswered question. That's my whole point.
The thing with science is science is just such a beautiful realm because it's very modest. It always tries to prove itself wrong, to try to follow the evidence wherever it goes. If you look back, obviously, with everything in looking for trends and things, all we do in any realm or industry is you look at the past, you look at where we are now, and then you try to base around future trends on those two variables. And if you look back to the time pre-modern science, all this sort of stuff, when all we had were just lovely stories and myths and theology and all these people saying lovely parables. And then you look into how the spectrum and we've changed in the timeline along to modern science. The place for God, and this is what I was referring to before with the God filling gap theory, is that the place for God has become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as we've got to this stage. So if you look on, 400 years ago, was it Galileo that was imprisoned for saying that we were not the center of the universe anymore? Was that Galileo or Aristotle?
No, I'm trying
Galileo, I think.
to remember which story you mean. There's a lot of...
He looked up at the universe. Anyway, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But 7,000 years ago, for an example, there was an ancient civilization called the Sumerians that actually hieroglyphed or put into rocks a complete replica of our solar system, including Pluto. So they knew about Pluto, the Sumerians.
I don't think they did.
You sure? But
Pretty
you can
sure
say
they
Pluto.
didn't.
Do you know the Sumerians?
What's your point on the Sumerians and Pluto?
So
then?
what I'm saying is, all right, back then when we were very ignorant, God was a big thing. Everyone believed in God. We had to pray. The more we've come to learn, the less that sets itself as an example. So based on trends, 500 years from now, surely we're going to be looked back on this time and go, fuck, Bill, Tom and Geraint were so dumb. They even thought God was this. Now we know it's just clearly this.
Well, yeah, you're right that this notion of the God of the gaps, you insert God where you think, I can't explain that, right?
That's right.
But the thing is that in reality, with regards to science, there's no question which is off bounds, right? There's no ultimate authority that says we will not study this because this is where we think this is where we insert God.
Yep.
Right? So consciousness, right? Where does consciousness come from? Huge amount of research around the world to understand what consciousness is and all that kind of stuff. So science will continuously look at all sort of questions with regards to the workings of the universe. Now, the way that some people see God is very different to that. God is not God would never be found in the gaps because that's not what God is about. God is about something that underpins the universe, not controls things on a day-to-day level. So again, it's how you define what your God does.
Yep.
That means whether or not you'd be worried about a particular area, being an area where you insert a God of the gaps.
Yeah.
And look, I think one of the places that is on a losing battle are people that still try and fight from the God of the gaps, the young Earth creationists, the irreducible complexity, etc. I mean, they're on a hide into nothing at some level because the number of it's not off bounds to any scientist to go and examine these questions and ask the question: how could this bacterial structure evolve? And because we know, and when it comes to dating the Earth, I think the weight of evidence is clearly on the side that it's billions of years old and not 4,000 years old. So I think the God of the Gaps argument is doomed, but that's not how a lot of people see God.
Yeah.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.